You get to choose one player for the next 10 years in the NBA. What? Every one of them you take is in the Western Conference? It's true. Next on Locked on Jazz. Bum 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 bum. Pow.
You are Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I am David Locke, radio voice of the Utah Jazz, Jazz NBA insider. This is Locked on Jazz, your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz. So I've been walking around asking anyone I know, you have one player for the next 10 years in the NBA, who are you going to take? Start commenting in the comment section or send me your answers on X. And it was a Jazz player that may have come up with the best answer, but the daunting thing is they're all in the West. We'll talk about that. Why does this year, going down the stretch, Jazz having lost a bunch in a row, 17 of 20, feel much worse than last year? We'll touch on that. And a weird little note about the Jazz defense that I actually think is good note for the Jazz defense, which ranks last of the NBA over the last 20 games. And then some notes from last night where, do the Sacramento Kings even make the playoffs this year? What? Their record basically the same as a year ago. I bet no right now. We'll touch on that as well. So that's what's coming up on today's edition of Locked on Jazz. Locked on Jazz is your daily podcast on the Utah Jazz, giving you insight, expertise, geeky numbers, and hopefully making it way better to be a Jazz fan each and every day. Thank you so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are free and available on all podcasting apps as well as on YouTube. Thank you very much. Please subscribe and follow. It's free, I promise. Thank you very much for doing so. To the everydayers, you're the best. Yes, if you come to the game tonight, I have stickers. Feel free to stop by and grab one. Ben Russell, my audio engineer, has them if I'm not there. All right, so it's the time of year we start having fun discussions. One of my fun discussions has been, and you can comment on this, SGA or Ant 3 years from now. You want Shai Gilgeous-Alexander or you want Ant 3 years now? The bigger question is kind of the 10-year question, and that the league is about to go through an evolution because a bunch of great players who we've been following for the last decade are kind of phasing out. Kawhi Leonard is probably Steph Curry, certainly. Of you top players, Joel Embiid, I don't know if he's phasing out, but he is 30 years old and his body's beginning to fail him. I don't think Giannis is stepping out at any point, but he is 29. Durant, certainly. LeBron, certainly. And so we're beginning to kind of move past what was this generation. Jimmy Butler, certainly. So, Butler, LeBron, maybe AD, he's 31. Durant, Curry, that run, Kawhi Leonard, 32, that dominant group of players is phasing out. So who is the player? If you had to start a franchise with one player for the next 10 years, who would you take? So I've asked this question a ton. Feel free to comment right now. Throw your comment over there. If you're on YouTube, throw your comment in. If you listen on X, hit me right now. Send it out. One player, 10 years. So the number one answer that I've gotten from everybody is Victor Wembanyama, who the Jazz will see tonight if he's questionable with an ankle injury. Pop said there's a 50% chance he'll play tonight. So the number one answer I'm getting from everyone is rookie Victor Wembanyama is the player for the next 10 years in the NBA that you'd want on your franchise. My guy, I took Luka. I had Luka as my choice. The other answer, and I'll give credit to Keontae George for this, because Keontae actually I thought was most interesting, was Nikola Jokic. He was like, I'll just win the titles now and figure out what happens in the next 10 years. I actually think Keontae's right on this, by the way. I think his answer is the right one. We're all trying to project down the road. He's like, I'll take the title now. Hard enough to win a title ever. He didn't say this. I'm saying it. Hard enough to win a title ever that Nikola Jokic is probably the right answer. because you probably are going to win 2 of the next 3 titles if you have Jokic around on your franchise, if not 3 of the next 4. And then so you win 3 of the 10. That would be a great success. I'm not sure if anybody of the other guys win any in 10 or even 1 or 2 in 10. Here's what's incredibly daunting if you're the Utah Jazz and you're in the midst of a rebuild. Those 3 answers, Jokic, Doncic, Wembanyama, are all currently in the Western Conference. And then I think the next 2 answers are too. Anthony Edwards, if he really becomes what he might be physically capable of doing, is probably the next answer after that. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander may be the next answer after that. No disrespect to Jason Tatum, who probably slides in as the next answer. But you start running down the top 100 NBA players, Tatum deserves to be in that conversation. And then if I have to go to a next player there, then I think I'm going to, and I think we have a big drop right about here. I think Jokic, Doncic, Wembanyama, Anthony Edwards, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander are probably the 5. Give Jason Tatum 6. I think the next name is Devin Booker. At 27 years old, 9 years in the league. I did have somebody take Tyrese Halliburton. One person took Tyrese Halliburton, 24 years old, 4th year in the league. So there's your Eastern. Is Tyrese Halliburton really going to be the best player of the Eastern Conference for the next 10 years? The other name that hasn't gotten mentioned, I don't think anybody wants to risk it, but is Zion Williamson, who is playing at a level right now that you might have to consider it. And then suddenly you have Jokic, Doncic, Wembanyama, Anthony Edwards, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Devin Booker, and Zion Williamson. 8 players in the Western Conference that are dominant pieces. There's only 8 playoff spots. It's crazy. This to me is like when you start, what's so difficult about a rebuild is the fact that not everybody else plays along. Yeah, you want the next 10 years, 1 player. So, and you've thrown your vote over. Yeah, the 3 logical votes are Victor Wembanyama, Luka Doncic, and Nikola Jokic. I think Dallas, and they were unbelievable last night. Obviously, they went crazy. I think they hit, 22 of 35 or something from 3. But I think Dallas makes the Western Conference Finals here, and then suddenly you start looking at Luke, and he's done it and he's suddenly starting to have this kind of run at 25, and everybody else wins their title. Most players win their title at 27, and it's pretty hard to not see, at least in my mind, not see Luka winning that title at 27, if not earlier. I mean, and you start suddenly looking at Luka's playoff runs, they're pretty good. Like there's not a lot of criticism here on saying, well, he doesn't do this or he doesn't do that. I mean, he goes to the West. His first year, at 20, he loses to the Clippers. At 21, he loses to the Clippers again. At 22, he goes to the Western Conference Finals. Last year, then they tank out. Okay, well, let's see what he does this year, because I think there's a real chance he's going to the Western Conference Finals again this year. And by the way, in Luka Doncic's 5 playoff series he's ever played in, he's averaged 31 points, 10 rebounds, and 7 or more assists in 4 of the 5. I think that's right. He's definitely averaged, his career playoff average in 5 series is 33 points, 9 rebounds, 8 assists. I'm not too worried about Luka in the playoffs. We don't know. That's why I'm taking Luka over Victor. I just don't know yet. I'm not. And then there's obviously Jokic. But Jokic is 29. He won his title at 28, 29. That's when guys win their titles, 28, 29. So even on Victor, you could be early. Like the scary thing on Victor, you talk about the next 10 years, if guys are winning their titles at 27, he's 20. We're 7 years out before he gets his title. And the West, wow. And there's obviously guys we don't know coming. But that to me, pretty wild. Interested to see what your comments were and who you're taking as your player for the next 10 years. And they are all in the West. 8 of them almost, if you include Zion. Jokic, Doncic, Wemby, Ant, SGA, Booker, Zion. Wow. It's part of the problem the Sacramento Kings have. We're going to jump into that. A weird stat, but I think it's really good news about the Jazz defense when it's good news on a Jazz defense that's last in the NBA. That's next on Locked on Jazz. Today's show is brought to you in part by eBay Motors. eBay Motors, taking care of your ride or die. Passion, drive, patience. It's what it takes to rebuild a championship. It's also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicles, level it to peak performance, from superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're up into speed, power, style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time. All right, so speed would be Anthony Edwards. Power would be Jokic. Style would be Luka. I don't know what Victor is yet, because eBay Motors is making sure you burn rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need, the prices you want, it's easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items apply. Exclusions apply. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Motors, Guaranteed Fit. Available to U.S. customers. Thanks so much for making Locked on Jazz your first listen of the day. We are always free and available on all podcasting apps as well as on YouTube. Thanks for all of you who've made comments today as well. Are you watching ESPN or Fox Sports on your TV all day? Well, turn down the volume because there's so much shouting, right? Well, then it's time to make the switch to Locked on Sports Today, a free 24/7 national streaming sports channel program for you every day with the biggest stories without all the screaming. So today you'll probably get a Mavericks and a Kings after their big game, maybe a Lakers for their comeback last night, 17 down, maybe a Bucks to their reaction, plus all the college previews. It's great. You get the local experts on all the biggest stories. Locked on Sports Today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube and free on Amazon Fire TV channel app, part of the Locked on Podcast Network. Your team, it's on YouTube, Locked on Sports Today, or on Amazon Fire TV. All right, so the Jazz are the worst defensive team in the NBA since the trades. We weren't really very good beforehand, but we're now the worst defensive team in the NBA. And I'm going to, this is impressive because I'm about to find good news for you out of this. I am a big believer, for those everydayers, you actually know this, you've heard me talk about this before. I'm a big believer that the first thing you kind of have to do defensively is you need to get your shot distribution right. Defensive shot distribution, that making shots against you. There's certainly going to be some level of contest and some things and speed. And if you can bust up someone's rhythm and they're taking shots from slightly different points and at different moments, yes. And we don't do much of that. Like, we don't bust up your rhythm a great deal. But the truth is, if you go look at data over years past, you end up seeing that in due time, teams end up shooting pretty close to the norm, the 36.6% three-point shooting. Like, if I look at it since February 8th, there's Indiana's getting very lucky right now, and teams are only shooting 31% from three, and Chicago and Charlotte are very unlucky at 43%. And that's a huge difference. That's a 12% gap. If I go to the entire season, you're going to see like a 5% gap. It minimizes to the norm. So that is part of the reason why I'm a big believer in effective field goal percentage. And what that is it tells you where teams are shooting from on the floor. And that, I think, gives you the best guess to ever building a good defense. Now, in the last games since February 8th, when the trades were made, the Jazz defense is last in the NBA at defending the shot. Teams are shooting an effective field goal percentage of nearly 60% against us in those games. Clippers are next worst, should be alarming, much more alarming to them because they're playing for something right now. Toronto, who is also probably not trying to notch many wins. Washington and Chicago join us. But the positive is, in that time period, we're the fourth best team in the league at denying shots to the rim, which is incredible because we're starting John Collins at center. So John Collins is 6'8", 6'9" at center, has really no ability to defend the rim. And we're the fourth best team at denying shots at the rim. That's a great sign. The best teams in the league at doing that are the Warriors, the Miami Heat, and the Milwaukee Bucks with Brook Lopez, and the Heat with their scrambling defense. And we're the fourth best team in the league at denying shots at the rim, with Boston being fifth. That's the elite, Lakers being sixth. This is the elite company you want to be in defensively. The second one is we're the fourth best team in the league at denying corner threes. So if you kind of go through this for a second and just make sure that everyone understands why these two things are so important, shooting at the rim is about 67% is the league average of shooting at the rim. So if you take a shot at the rim, it's 1.35 points per possession. Okay. I like to use 70 because it's easier, but let's just go with that. 1 point, teams gotten better. 1.35. The corner three goes in at about 40% of the time. We're using round numbers for the ease of discussion. So from 1.6 or one, or what do we just say on ease of discussion? And then I forget. If we're going to use 67%, it's 1.35. So let's use 40. 1.4 points per shot at the rim. If it's 1.4 shots at the rim and it's 1.2 shots for the corner three, a mid-range shot is 0.85, and an above the break three, teams are actually shooting it better and better and better over time. Give them credit, but it's 1.1. So if you're going to start playing math defensively, the first thing you want to deny is the rim at 1.4 points. Okay, that's great. The second thing you want to deny is the corner three at 1.2 points, and we're doing that. The other thing you don't want to do is you don't want to foul. And we have generally been pretty good about this year. We're 19th in the league ninth in the league in not fouling. Since the trade deadline, we're 16th. So we're not quite as good, but we're not bad. And the reason you don't want to foul is because free throws are about 80% now, and so that's 1.6. But again, that's like since middle of the pack. We're shorthanded. We're playing young kids. We're surprisingly getting a pretty good whistle in this time period. We're actually in the same time period, we're the third best team at going to the free throw line. The rate we go to the free throw line since the trade deadline, which is kind of stunning. So these are really, really good signs to where we are defensively, even though we're terrible defensively. Like, I know that sounds really counterintuitive on this, but these are actually the first places. I mean, look, I remember with Wes Unseld Jr. was the head coach in Washington, and they were young, and their location effective field goal percentage defense was terrible. It's like, well, wait a second, you're not teaching the right habits. Like if you aren't doing that correctly, you aren't teaching the right habits. So right now we're the fourth best team in the league at denying the rim, the fourth best team in the league at denying corner threes. The other teams, by the way, better than us are San Antonio, Indiana, and Minnesota. And then Orlando's fifth. And then we are allowing a lot of threes, and they're going in at a high rate. We're 29th in the league at allowing above the break threes. You kind of have to give and take here. Like, if we're going to take away the rim and going to take away corner threes, you have to sort of allow the above the break three. My next comment on that is that I think that where our defensive weakness is that we're not doing anything that disrupts. We're not forcing a lot of turnovers. We're last in the NBA, I think, in forcing turnovers. Teams come down the floor. They get into their systems. They run their stuff. They're not out of rhythm. Guys are in the spots they want to be in. Nothing's precluded them from getting to where they want to be. And we don't have that physicality defensively that you feel us. And so therefore you're suddenly, you're feeling pretty darn good about just how you're running your offense, where you're getting the ball, what you're doing. It's a little bit of kind of Will's comment the other day that we're just so scheme oriented right now that our guys are executing schemes instead of playing basketball. And that there's a youthness to that. They're just trying to do the right thing instead of just impacting the game. And so I do think that is probably what you're feeling a little bit and why teams are torching us in their shooting. But the big picture concept is that schematically we are doing things in the right way, which is to deny the corner three and deny the rim. And if we weren't doing those things, I'll be honest, I'd be sitting here really, really concerned. Like, well, are we just not a very good coach defensive team? Are we not executing? Like, what? Those things don't. We're just not there yet, right? We're probably short on height in the middle. We're short on talent in some ways, and so we're getting torched at times on the defensive end in a way that's really frustrating. But I do think from a schematic standpoint, we're seeing a lot of good news in all regards there. I was trying to see. I just got a note. I thought I was going to be able to tell you what was on Locked On Sports today, but I did not. All right. One thing I'm getting from a bunch of people is like, last year we're guys were having big days. We were doing stuff. We weren't just getting hammered all the time. And that is true. If you go back to April 8th last year against Denver, I think, Ochai Agbaji, I think, has 28 and Luka Doncic has 23. And we have this kind of big day and we beat Denver 118-114. And we beat Sacramento late in the year last year in March in what felt like a pretty good win. And they actually were playing most of their guys. So they started Kessler Edwards that year. Ochai had 27 in that game. One thing is I've always felt you got to be really careful about kind of taking these notes. I mean, we went to Charlotte March 11th last year, and Talon, I think that's the night Talon went bananas. Am I right on that? Talon goes crazy on that night. I think he had 30, 37. This year it feels really different to me than what we experienced last year because we're playing teams with something on the line other than tonight. We are literally this schedule. If you just kind of run through it, since March 16th, which is our last 6 losses, Minnesota playing for the 1 seed, Minnesota playing for the 1 seed, Oklahoma City playing for the 1 seed, Dallas playing for the 6 seed, Houston trying to get 9, Dallas for 6. Tonight we get it off. Then we go back to Houston playing for 6, Sacramento or playing for 9, Sacramento playing for their lives. Cleveland will see it. They're not playing for a lot. I have to look and dig into where they are. Clippers playing for 4 or 5, Warriors playing to try to stay in the playoffs, Denver playing for 1, Houston playing for 9 or for 10, Clippers playing for 4 or 5, and Warriors playing for their lives. Like, other than Cleveland, tonight is the only night all year the rest of the way, unless Cleveland's, I guess, trying to make sure they don't fall into 5. They're only a game and a half out of losing home court advantage. The Bucks seem to have number 2, but Cleveland would probably like to be 3. Not face Miami or Philadelphia in 7-8. So Cleveland's probably playing for something too. I mean, these teams aren't like sort of playing for something. They're really playing for something every night. So we're getting, with all of our youth on the floor, the NBA has created a situation in which everyone else is playing for something. And so, yeah, we are getting blasted at a little bit of a level that it didn't feel like last year. And I think that's the reason. If you look, like the other day, it's a little different right now because Washington's actually won 3 in a row and San Antonio beat Phoenix in a stunner in the last one out. But for a while, the bottom 10 teams in the NBA had lost something like 32 games in a row. Like Detroit's lost 7 straight. Charlotte's lost 5 straight. Portland's lost 7 straight. Toronto's lost 11 straight. We've lost 6 straight. Chicago's actually trying to play and they've lost 3 straight. Like these teams, the other teams in the league are pumping it right now. Like the Lakers have won 4 in a row. Houston's won 9 in a row. Dallas has won 5 in a row. Denver's won 4 in a row. Like, the elite teams have all clicked in and have something on the board right now. And it is making it feel very, very different. What happens if the Sacramento Kings don't make the playoffs? And if they don't make the playoffs, is it actually more understandable than we think? And how does it relate to the Jazz rebuild? We'll touch on that as we continue here on Locked On Jazz. Today's edition of Locked On Jazz is brought to you by your sports destination, Amazon Fire TV. Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. We've got all sorts of great things for you on Amazon Fire TV, including Locked On Sports Today. But Fire TV is your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experience with smart TVs, as well as the Fire TV Stick that you can plug into your existing TV that provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes, as well as free and live TV. Whether it's opening weekend of baseball or college basketball tournament, you're going to want to have Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver constant supply of the latest videos for your favorite sports brands, and they're all for free. That includes all of us at Locked On and most of other big league sports and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels let you dive into all the games, analysis, highlights, and more to keep up to date with all the latest in the sports world, March Madness, NBA, MLB, not to mention great news, entertainment. So check it out. Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. If you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me, Locked On Sports Today is up there as well. So go to Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. That's Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. Today's show is also brought to you by Nissan. with 3 different vehicles right now for you to check out and have your adventure with. Let's run through them. The 2024 Nissan Rogue is perfect for city drives and great escapes. Class exclusive Google built-in as well, always updating. So gone are the days of connecting your phone because Google Assistant, Google Maps, and Google Play Store right there. The 2024 Rogue is perfect for midsize crossover in your next adventure. The 2024 Nissan Pathfinder has room update, expansive cargo capacity, advanced available 4x4 capability with a 284 horsepower and up to 6,000 pounds of towing. When adventure calls, Pathfinder's there. And the 2024 Nissan Armada will change what you expect from a full-size SUV. Picture a rugged 4x4 that can set up 8 in first-class style, tow bigger, and explore further in the 2024 Armada. That's the Rogue, the Pathfinder, and the Armada. Go find your next big adventure. Shop NissanUSA.com. It is Locked On Jazz. Spurs Jazz today. That game's available for you on Sirius XM, as all hometown broadcasts are, including all of Major League Baseball coming up here. I love Sirius XM for that. As well as on 1280 The Zone and the KSL.com app and the Utah Jazz app. So stream us everywhere. Join me and Ron. We promise we will have fun. Last night, in a game with massive playoff implications, the Dallas Mavericks went into Sacramento on a back end of a back-to-back into one of supposedly the tougher places to play with playoff positioning on line and waxed the Sacramento Kings. And the Dallas Mavericks are now 11-0 when Luka Doncic and Daniel Gafford start together. If my notes are correct, Sacramento did not get a transition basket till 3:30 left in the third. Let's look at something together. Western Conference playoff picture. Playoffstatus.com. Sacramento Kings now have a 36% chance to be the 7th seed, an 18% chance to be the 8th seed, and an 8% chance to be the 9th seed. So they have a 24% chance of being the 6th seed. Let me walk through something with you and give me your thoughts. The Sacramento Kings against the Phoenix Suns. And as of right now, that game would be in Sacramento for the 8-9 play-in game. So right now, the playoffs would start. If the playoffs start today, and in all likelihood, the way this is going to work is that our first matchup will be Lakers-Warriors in LA at Staples Center. I got to say I'm taking the Lakers. Hate to say that, but I'm taking the Lakers. And our second matchup, though, frankly, the Suns' chances, by the way, there's a real chance that the Suns can slip to 9 and the Lakers can catch them. That has not been discussed enough. That is still a real possibility. So let's just take for a second. The next scenario is that it holds as I'm saying, and then the Sacramento Kings face the Phoenix Suns in the play-in game in 7-8. Okay? Who wins that game? Who wins Sacramento Phoenix first round? Let me just throw a hypothetical. Let's say Phoenix wins that game. I'm not sure I believe it, but let's say they do. Then Sacramento plays the Los Angeles Lakers in a one-game make the playoffs or not game. Who are you taking? I think I'm taking the Lakers. I don't know if I think the Lakers beat the Suns, but it does make me wonder. Here's what gets interesting about this. Sacramento's done a lot of things really, really well. And we talk about you got to have a top 10, a top 20, a top 50 player. They have like 2 guys that are 20th in the NBA. De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis are both like 20th in the NBA. And so they don't have a top 10 player in the NBA. And they really don't have the third guy either. So that might actually be as important as anything else. Their next best player on their roster is question mark who it is. Is it Malik Monk is their third best player? And then if it is Malik Monk, like where does he rank inside of NBA players? Is he 80th? Is he in the top 100? He and Colin Sexton are hovering in the mid 80s. They're similar. I don't know the answer to that. But that's, I think that's their issue but it's an interesting thing to me that here Sacramento's done all these things well, and they've got 2 top 20 players who are both 26 and 27. It feels pretty perfect. I think have a real chance of getting knocked out of the playoffs. And then they have an even more likely chance that they're going to make the playoffs as the 8th seed. And then what do? Gets interesting. Dallas is rolling. Dallas is the 6th seed in my book. Dallas beats Oklahoma City or Minnesota both and gets to the conference finals if that's their bracket. And it sure feels like that's going to be their bracket because Clippers and Pelicans are not about to go catch either of those 2 teams. And I'll take Luka in both those matchups. And suddenly Dallas is in the NBA Western Conference Finals against the Denver Nuggets, seemingly to go to the NBA Finals. Luka versus Jokic. That feels like the way this is going to play out. What gets the surrounding stuff gets pretty fascinating. Like Lakers, Denver, first round of the scenario I just gave you gets pretty fascinating. Warriors, Suns, Kings, possibly, 2 of those teams are out before the play, right? Woo! Yeah, it's going to be nuts. That is Locked On Jazz for the day. Thanks very much for tuning in. Jazz Spurs tonight. So curious to see your comments on what player you'd want for the next 10 years. We now send you over to the first ever 24/7 national streaming channel, both on Amazon Fire TV as well as on YouTube. It's called Locked On Sports Today. Make the switch today to Locked On Sports Today.